BFM 89.9, I'm Audrey Raj with your World Cup Quickie. Spain are out of the World Cup. Guess the Chileans were just too spicy for them. They fell 2-0 to Chile, and that was their second successive loss in this tournament. And guess what? They've now conceded more goals at this World Cup than they have in the past two European Championships and the last World Cup as well. So I guess it's bye-bye Spain. So it's Chile that moves on to the knockout phase alongside Holland, who had a close call against Australia. The Socceroos matched them goal for goal. Impressive, mate. And the match ends 3-2 to Holland with Robin van Persie and Arjen Robben moving on to 3 goals so far in the tournament. We know who's moving on from Group B, but who'll be moving on from Group A, we'll have to wait till next week, cause Chile gave themselves a fighting chance when they beat Cameroon 4-0 this morning. Goals from Ivica Olic, Ivan Perisic and 2 from Mario Mandzukic were easy after Alex Song was sent off for doing a bit of this in the match. I don't know what game he was playing, but certainly was not football. So Group A has Brazil and Mexico tied on 4 points each, with Croatia with 3. And we'll go to the final matches of the group stage to see who will play Holland and Chile in the knockout rounds. But more big matches up tonight with Group C action. Colombia play Ivory Coast and Japan are up against Greece. But of course, the big one tonight will be Uruguay versus England. That kicks off at 3 a.m. And now, here's Nadia Hassan.
BFM 89.9, good morning, I'm Nadia Hassan and welcome to your morning headlines. So the pick and mix today of the papers is basically sedition, a boat, a lot of football pictures for some very obscure reason, debates over whether you can unilaterally convert your child. The usual pick and mix, of course, for every single bunch of morning news. So we start off with The Sun, basically talking about AEG Act. So the Attorney General Tan Sri Abdul Ghani Patel announced yesterday that 4 people are to be charged under the Sedition Act. As we were mentioning today in the morning segment, it's very hard to say what is actually sedition. I mean, where do you actually kind of draw the line? So these 4 guys have actually been brought up. So now we actually have to see what comes out of it. You know, when you have these kinds of charges and these kinds of trials, it'll be very closely watched, because at what line is it freedom and what line is it sedition? That line is so very fine. You don't know which one kind of tips the statement. Some guys go into Facebook accounts, and that's the other thing. I mean, most of the time you think on Facebook you'd actually have a lot of freedom to say everything. Personally, I think people share too much on Facebook, so maybe political views should be kept out of that. Going into New Straits Times, they do the same thing with a nice big 4 on it, talking about sedition charges against 4, along with this really big picture of as safe as Banks of England. And it's actually about the goalkeeper, and I was wondering whether it was actually a piece on the Bank of England. No, it wasn't. They just kind of misled me. So Malay Mail comes up with this big thing about offensive to rule out terror group zeroes in on Iraq-Syria bound militants. Now, this is interesting. Apparently yesterday, they hosted up a rubber tapper because he had a bunch of homemade weapons, and clearly he had done some shooting practice. He was ready to join the current situation that's going on in Iraq. Of course, as everybody knows, there's a huge big hoo-ha around there. I mean, from a business point of view, it actually took out a lot of the refineries, and because of that, the people are worried about the price of oil again. So this doesn't kind of help. So I think the departments were actually acting on tips from various government agencies, so they picked him up. They even give a nice little timeline about where they picked him up and you know what's going to happen. The question is there more of these? I mean, you wonder, and how far did they get along? I mean, where did they do their training? How did they actually get their correspondence, of course? So yeah, big picture with very scary little masked man in the corner. Star also hauls that one up, but this time, you know, they actually have the SAS man and they have the guy on as well. But they also mentioned the whole thing about a new road. This is about the issue about whether you can unilaterally convert your child. And the funny thing is, if you actually look at this page 2 of the Star, you have a lot of conflicting statements. One parent, not good enough, says law expert. The other lawyer says no need to have consent of both parents. So which one is it? I think after the whole issue that happened at the funeral, and then of course there was the one at the wedding, all of this stuff will actually, and let's not forget there was a kidnapping case a few months ago, you know, all of this stuff is going to keep going up. We just hope that one day they'll actually come up with one law and kind of stick to it. Stick to it being the actual imperative word. And talking about that, Maya has actually been dipertahan because of their whole issues and whether they've dealt with it properly. It just said here that tindakan pemimpin PAS Selangor mahu menindak enactment to actually reduce their power. after all, it's still under that particular state government. We'll have to see what develops out of that. Now, back to the mentioning about the boat sinking. This one is the cover of Sinar Harian today. Basically, Tong Kang Maut, that's our word of the day. A lot of them were Indonesian illegal immigrants actually hoping to go back, but there's going to be an investigation taking place into what exactly happened. 9 were found dead. Some of the others were rescued. But still, you know, these kinds of incidents, these kind of cases, it just kind of brings up the issue of human smuggling. Is it, you know, how rampant is it? And, you know, all these are not the kind of headlines you want to see. It is also the headline of Harian Metro, which funnily enough doesn't go that tabloidy today. They have a very big picture of football, and I have a feeling that that theme is going to continue. They also talk about Karam Tengah Malam. That is the point. It actually happened in the middle of the night, so that probably makes Sedition Rectu a bit harder. Still, more questions, and then they have pictures, you know, they have pictures of men floating face down. We've talked a lot about this. I know it's sensationalist, I know it's a tabloid, but is this really kind of necessary? One little final thing before we wrap up. If you actually picked up your papers today, you realize you can't see them because everybody has this one particular wraparound ad. I've never heard of RNF properties, not that we're giving them free thing, but yeah, you can't run away from the fact that they're on the wraparound ad every single day. Actually, what was more interesting to me was this little snippet in the corner of this cover where apparently 3 people died because of balls. You know, it was actually 3 guys in China in the age of 20s, the 30s and their 50s. Basically, they just watched too much World Cup and simply sadly dropped dead. So people out there, please remember to keep an eye on your health. That's it for me. I'm Nadia Hassan, and that's been your morning headlines on BFM 89.9.